Let's get a whole lot more into the conversation, which is Nigeria's transportation sector reportedly accounting for some 1.6% of the country's economy in the third quarter of the current year, posting one of the highest growth by expanding 20.6% in real terms. Recently, GPC Energy and Logistics, which is an unlisted private company, raised 20 billion naira debt capital in a milestone transaction guaranteed by InfraCredit. That's a local currency guarantor that ensures the quality of debt instrument issues. Now, speaking more to one of the biggest private debt raising in the outgoing year in Nigerian market is the Elvis Okonji, the Chief Executive Officer of GPC Energy and Logistics. Great to have you on the show tonight, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming to the studio.
Mr. Boasin.
Let's hit the ground running. Give me your perspective on the transportation sector growth and how does this impact the broader economy?
Mr. Boasin, it has been very interesting. Thank God that the country is beginning to recognize the transport sector. The growth has been there now. And I think for now, it is because of what we are doing currently in the sector. That was why the growth is now beginning to show in the country economy. The transport sector or the haulage sector is a very vital sector in the country. We just find out that the government have been for long not be paying attention to that sector. It's an informal sector already in the country. And this is a sector that we know that it is very, very vital to the economic growth. You cannot do anything in this country without the transport sector and without the logistics sector. I will say it clearly here. What we need to do here is to ensure that this sector, government has to put interest more on this sector because it is the driver of the economy. When the transport sector is not going very well, it's going to affect other sectors of the economy, even the so-called agricultural growth we are experiencing in the country. If the haulage sector or the transport sector is not well looked at, when you produce your items in the farm or you do your farm produce without the so-called transport teams or without the so-called haulage sector, you cannot move those things from the interior to the consumers. And so, therefore, it is very vital for the government to pay attention to this sector.
Now, what makes this very sector attractive to you as a corporate player like GPC, and what are the key challenges? What part of the logistics sector are you really playing in? Is it in just moving haulage? Is it in the energy sector, general merchandise?
Yeah, we play more. We play on in the dry cargo sector. That's what we call the dry cargo. The dry cargo is for the manufacturers and also for the agricultural produce all over the country. We try to ensure that whatever is being produced within those sectors, we move them to the end users, and that's what we've been doing.
Now, you went to the market to raise 20 billion naira. This is quite significant, by the way. If you look at this raising, how does it fit into your financing needs? What do you really need the most in your line of business when you're looking at 20 billion naira? Even by today's exchange rate, that's still a whole lot of cash.
You see, our sector is a very expensive sector to run. You cannot acquire a truck without you being spending an average of about 50 million naira for one Chinese truck on the road. And then if you have the so-called European trucks on the road, you are going to spend about 80 million naira. And it's a very capital-intensive sector. And for us to grow or for us to achieve our corporate or our business growth plan, we need to do the right thing. We need to get a long-term funding. We need to get funding at a nice cost to our business, because by the time you go to the bank to get loans from the bank, the interest rate is always very high, and then you cannot predict the long-term deals with your clients. And so with this fundraising, it will enable us now refinance most of our structured, it will enable us refinance our debts and also increase our infrastructures, technology, people, getting new trucks in to ensure that we compete very well within the economy, within the Nigerian economy. We want to play big in the sector. I think the GPC is the first company in this country that have raised 20 billion naira in bond in the logistics sector. And we have a plan in the next 10 years where we want to get to. And without us not doing the right thing, we won't get there. So our strategic growth plan is for us to go and do the right thing in the market. And that's what we've done. We've gone to the market, we've raised 20 billion, and then we'll have the next plan to go within the next 10 years.
I would like you to tell me about those plans. But first, I'm looking at the, this is infra credit now, came into the transaction. You could see the image of you signing on there. What is the significance of that, bringing infra credit into the transaction?
Elvis. Yes. Infra credit, they are AAA company. They guarantee our local currency transactions in the country. Remember, it is very key for you that when you are doing a business in an economy, you look at the economy, how the economy is going. We don't need to go and borrow money from the foreign countries we used to do. We borrow locally and we pay locally. Infra credit is very significant here because that AAA company, they have guaranteed this transaction very well because it is an irrevocable guarantee they have given based on their strength. And that is why we're able to raise 20 billion. That strength has been very, very solid on the transactions.
Well, what infra credit gives is a guarantee that your business is good business and you'll be able to pay back from those you're borrowing.
Yes, they know. We've been in the business in the last 10 years in the country. We've been in business in the last 10 years in the country, and I think we have borrowed over 25 billion from the Nigerian banks in the last 10 years, and it has been fully paid. So they've seen the track record that we have. And so based on our track record, and that was why they came in and said, okay, we can guarantee this transaction for you. You go ahead and go to the capital market and raise the fund you need to raise. Remember, before you can go to the capital market to raise funds, there are other structures that need to be done. They have to look at your ratings. They have to rate the company. They have to do a lot of due diligence in the business. They have to look at how solid the business is. So they've seen the future in GPC, and that's why they have decided to give their guarantee on it.
Well, you do 20 billion, so this is a 50 billion naira program. I'm sure you're looking at 50 billion, the balance of 30 billion, and maybe you're heading to 100.
Yes, we've done 50 billion, we've done 20 billion. We have the next 30 billion to do. Those 30 billion, we will do it in phases within the next 3 years because we need to develop in more infrastructure, more assets, and also technology to run the business, and the people. People is key. We have to develop the people. We have to train them. The workers, we have to train them. So there's a lot to be done. You remember, the 30 billion is not going to, if you want to buy a truck with the 30 billion, you cannot afford more than, 30 billion cannot give you more than about 300 to 320 units of trucks. And then the sector has a serious gap, very massive gap. If you watch today, there's a crisis in this country, food crisis in this country. What do you think? Why do you think there's food crisis? Farmers produce in the market. They produce in the farm. They cannot supply those products to the end users. Some of them got spoiled in the farm because the cost of transportation, the cost of haulage is very expensive. So we are trying to see how we can water down that aspect. And that's why we have gone to the market to raise bond, to see that we got this money at a much cheaper cost, and then we can plan for the next 10 years on those funds. And that's what we're trying to do.
When are you coming back to the market? Next year?
No, we won't come back by next year to the market. We're still developing. We are still trying to get it right. We've just raised 20 billion. We have to watch how the money has been, how we have invested the money, how his money is growing. Remember, this is people's money, and you have to be very careful. And we've been very careful in the last 10 years. We have to be more careful now. So we're looking at, after this phase, we'll come back in 2023 to now analyze and see how extent we have utilized this fund before we now plan how we can come back in the next series of bonds we need to raise.
Elvis Okonji, the Chief Executive Officer at GPC Energy and Logistics Limited, we thank you so much and we appreciate your time. Do have a pleasant evening and we wish you all the best.
Thank you.